Finally, the Lakers dropped their first game of the LeBron era, 128-119, to the Portland Trail Blazers last night. And as we talked about earlier, LeBron has never won a debut game with a new team, so he understands it takes time to make and he made a very interesting comparison last night.
Not as fast as you guys think it's going to happen. It's not. I always kind of compare it, to like instant oatmeal. It's not that fast. It takes a while for the chemistry to get to where you can close your eyes and know exactly where your guys are.
We live in a very instant gratification society.
Yes.
We are very impatient as people these days.
Yeah.
This is not something that I think is going to happen overnight, and I don't know that many people do think it's going to happen overnight. I think fans are probably overreacting to it.
Well,
as you said earlier, they definitely need shooters.
Oh, yeah, that's not...
But it takes time to develop chemistry.
I saw you guys as a team get a bit frustrated when you got away from things that work well offensively, moving the ball. Ron, how do you break those habits?
Well, it's a work in progress. And obviously, we all wish we can happen overnight like instant oatmeal, but it's not going to happen that way. We got to be put in these positions, and the best teacher in life is experience. And when the game gets tough and it has some adversity, we can't resort back to our old ways, the one-pass shots. If it's not in a break situation where we're going like Kyrie did in overtime to get 2 free throws, then we got to continue to work our offense. And that's what the coaching staff, they'll stay on us about that the next day when we watch film.
Hey guys, welcome to the Mix Minus Podcast. This is Matt McQueenie. This is not now the Instant Oatmeal Podcast. What you heard there was the Colin Cowherd Herd Show that's on FS1 and on various Fox Sports affiliates and podcasts. Very good show. And it was his partner Joy Taylor reading the news. And they were going over the first game of the LeBron James era, the first regular season game with the Los Angeles Lakers here in October 2018, where the Lakers lost in Portland to the Trail Blazers. A much ballyhooed game. Many eyes were on it. Phil Knight was there. I think obviously Magic Johnson was there. It was a big event, as every LeBron James Los Angeles Lakers game will be until they go through a big losing streak or start the season at a very low level, and then we will see how much people are interested in this team. But it's funny because I juxtaposed that first opening piece that Joy was speaking about on the Herd Show, where LeBron James was comparing the team coming together, that it wasn't like instant oatmeal. It doesn't happen that fast. And then wasn't it funny that we then heard a clip when he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers on Fox Sports Ohio after a game, I believe, against the Indiana Pacers. You heard him drop the name Kyrie there, so it was at least 2 years ago. I think that's what I'm seeing from the clip. But he brought up the instant oatmeal line again. And I'm sure people who cover LeBron are going to tell you that he's brought that term up a lot. I don't know that I agree with it, though. I'm not a big fan of that analogy, of that illusion. I think LeBron actually is instant oatmeal. Because what is the opposite of instant oatmeal? It's slow cooker oatmeal. My wife makes a mean slow cooker oatmeal, really good one. We went apple picking earlier this fall, I think in September, and we got some nice apples, and she makes a beautiful slow cooker oatmeal where it pretty much cooks overnight. You put the apples in there and everything is beautiful, and you end up the next day with a great breakfast, slow cooked, just hearty, really nice, as opposed to instant oatmeal, which I myself had yesterday morning. I was in a pinch. You throw that instant oatmeal into a bowl, and you put some milk in there, and then you put it in the microwave for about a minute 11, minute 10, and you end up with something that is generally pretty good, but it's nowhere close to as good as the slow cooker oatmeal. That said, I think slow cooker oatmeal is more like what the Golden State Warriors have done. They built over time. They built slowly. They did not rely on major acquisitions until, of course, Kevin Durant came on the scene. But it's sort of that feel. That is that. When you're LeBron James and you've moved as many times as you have now, which is well within your rights to do, but he left Cleveland once for Miami to take his talents to South Beach. 4 years later, he came back to Cleveland. Then 4 years later, now, in the period of time where we are at this point, he went to the Los Angeles Lakers. And LeBron will be 34 in December. He's got to be instant oatmeal, and he always has been instant oatmeal. everywhere he's gone, teams win. Teams become eventually, once he got out of that early period of his career, teams become 60-win type teams. Then when he went to the Miami, that's instant oatmeal. I know they started out 9-8. It was a little slow for people's liking, but they ended up really good. They went to the finals. They went to the finals every year he was there. They won 2 of them, the 2 middle ones. And then he goes to Cleveland, and they're in the finals every year. That to me is instant oatmeal. That to me is fast cooking. You're going to make things happen. You are prepared already. You just got to put some milk, water in, and let that microwave go, and you bring it all. That's where it goes. I don't like the analogy with him. He's allowed to make it, but I'm sorry. This is the problem I had with him coming to the Lakers all along. I didn't like that he was coming to a team that wasn't ready to win, as he is on the backside of his prime. He is going to be 34 in December. And if you're willing to kind of now be a slow cooker situation, and I think for him it's more than just basketball. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think he saw Los Angeles as a place where he could play at a high level still, but it was a place where he could play at a high level off of the court. And that was as much a big piece. You see how many shows he has coming out, how many media ventures he has going on, and Los Angeles was the place he could do that. That was why I didn't like the decision to go to Los Angeles, because there were many other places where he has a better chance to win in the now, and you could almost probably pick any Eastern Conference team up and down the entire standings, and he has a better shot to at least get to the finals. He could carry almost any team to the finals, I think, in the Eastern Conference. You go to the West, and there's going to be a lot of these Portland type games where you're on the road, you're traveling further than you have to when you're on the East Coast mostly. It's going to be tough. It's going to be brutal every night, and he's not allowed to now go into this phase of his career where he doesn't have to be the prime mover all the time. The thing I liked with him maybe going to Houston, which, look, it looks like that was a pipe dream, that it was not going to happen, but at least on Houston, you have several people who can be primary ball handlers and give you these breaks on the court. I thought that was a big deal. Now at the Lakers, he's got to do everything. He's got to be the prime mover. He needs to pick this team up and carry them all the way. And it's looking to me like he's going to carry a team that gets to a mid-40s to maybe upper 40s win total and not an NBA Finals. And why start relinquishing that at this phase of the career? Why not just go to the Lakers when you're 38, when there's not everything on you? I like the faith he has in himself to pull this off, but I just don't like what it's going to mean when all is said and done to his career, because I don't think he's going to continue this finals run. He's going to be hoping on a lot of things to happen in the offseason to get more high-level players in here to play alongside him, to start to carry him as he drops off a little bit. And I didn't like it. And look, he could say what he wants, but this idea of instant oatmeal, he is instant oatmeal. I'm sorry. That's how good he is. That's how important he is. Michael Jordan's not going to a new team and saying, hey, it's going to take some time. We're going to have to carry this thing. He made the decision, he being LeBron, made the decision to go to a Los Angeles Lakers team that, let's be honest, was a 35-win team without him. That's a lot of progression to make on a team when you're going to be 34. So now you're telling me by the time he gets players in here, he's going to be on the cusp of 35. And then when they really start getting into things, I mean, really, if he's not making the finals next year, he's making it when he's 36, 37. That just starts to get long in the tooth for me. I think what's going to happen is the Lakers are not going to start off well because, look, if they do need to slow cook, which they really do, this is a slow cooker situation where you're trying to build something and then you throw the instant oatmeal in the middle of it, being LeBron. But they're probably going to start off slowly as they try to figure their way around having this monumental force in the middle of their team ready to go. 8 straight finals that he played in. I think they're going to start off slowly, and you're going to start to hear the instant oatmeal moves. They do have assets, which other teams will want. When you're thinking of Brandon Ingram, when you're thinking of Alonzo Ball, when you're thinking of Kyle Kuzma, when you're thinking of Josh Hart, they have a lot of players people want. Then they have the veterans who I don't think people want as much, and such as the Rondos, such as the JaVale McGees. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to come face to face with having to make a decision about, look, we need to make a run this year. We need to ride LeBron while he's still below 35. And I know time might not be the same for him as it is for others. He's got an amazing training regimen. He seems on top of things. But when you get to this age, if you do happen to have an injury, sometimes that injury can knock out your prime because you're away from the court, you're not able to stay as conditioned, and you decondition very quickly because of your advanced basketball age. But I think they're going to run into a point where you're looking at the opponent last night, and I really think Damian Lillard is the perfect complement to LeBron. He's 28, 29, and wouldn't the Trailblazers, who just lost their owner, big money backer in Paul Allen, former Microsoft, maybe co-founder, I think, or original employee, had a lot of Microsoft money to buy two major teams in the Northwest there, in the Portland Trailblazers and the Seattle Seahawks. But, they might be in a position where they're willing to change some things because as they stand, they're going to be a high 40s win team potentially because they're coached up well and they have enough talent on the court and enough of a home court advantage to find their way to being, a handful of games above 500, whether that gets you up into the high 40s as they did last year or whether that tails off a bit to the mid 40s, which is a potential this year with a guy like LeBron now in the West and with how good the West is. But I think you're looking at something where you want some instant oatmeal in here. You want some Damian Lillard. He would play perfectly with LeBron. He's got the killer aspect. He'd be a little bit of a lower key, lower maintenance Kyrie Irving too, and somebody who is on the court much more often. I don't think he's as injured as a player as Kyrie has shown. And look, they have some pieces if they're willing to part with them. I'm sure the Blazers would be open to Alonzo Ball, some deal where he was one of the principals, because you can start building this thing with a guy like that. In a shoe capital of the world type of deal. So I think we're going to find that maybe the Lakers do end up competing this year because they move to get instant oatmeal players. They have enough pieces to do it, and let's be honest, why slow cook this thing when you have instant oatmeal? I know LeBron said we're not instant oatmeal. It's not like instant oatmeal, but I think they are. So it's really exciting to have the NBA basketball season back. This is my first year with the NBA that I'm now a cord cutter, and I really do believe the service I have, YouTube TV, is the best service for the best cord cutting service for NBA fans because at its base it has NBA TV, which is a big deal. My old cable provider, Service Electric, did not even offer NBA TV. And then it also offers the NBA League Pass through the app. I had always purchased the NBA League Pass digital just through the NBA. So you could interface with that, all those games in the NBA app. But I really want my center of visual entertainment to be the Google YouTube TV service. So I actually canceled my NBA League Pass broadband on the app and then bought it through YouTube TV. And so now the beauty of this is that all of those games are now fed into the one interface where I'm watching everything. Then it gets built in with the Nets on Yes, and it gets built in with the NBA TV, so it's all in the mix. You don't have to jump between different apps to watch things. When you're watching it on your television, it's just a perfect situation. So I did that. So I really think YouTube TV is the best service for the NBA sports fan from a cord-cutting point of view. It's just so nice. It's got really nice interfaces as well when you're watching the game, where if you minimize the window, you can see all kinds of statistics on how the game is going on the side there. I also realized, which I'm hoping doesn't go away and that it's not just an oversight, that YouTube TV, one of the downsides is it doesn't have MSG networks on it. Several of the other cord-cutting services actually do. This one doesn't, but I love the price of this. I love the interface. I'm grandfathered in at the $35 a month price. I really, really, really like this, so I'm sticking with it. But I was worried because I'm not a Knicks fan, but I like watching Knicks games. I love watching the Madison Square Garden experience and crowd and seeing a Knicks team give their all, which it looks like they're going to be the type of team that really scraps and fights and is building towards something now under David Fizdale. But I really like seeing the other teams come into Madison Square Garden and see what they do, such as the Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry always has beautiful games there. And so that's an important thing to watch. Plus, MSG has a lot of the hockey games. I do try to check in with the Devils where I can. So it's a real bummer it's not in the app. I am able to authenticate into MSG Go through my parents' Optimum account. So that does give me some access to MSG, and I can AirPlay it from my devices to the TV. They don't have a native app for the television. They want you to have cable to get that native app for the television, but you can AirPlay it. So that gives me some exposure. But so far in the season, I have been able to watch the Knicks through the through the YouTube TV NBA League Pass feed. So I'm really hoping that's not an oversight and it's going to end up getting blacked out. But so far, so good with that. So that is a really nice thing. First night of the NBA, though, YouTube TV had some problems. They had a all-out blackout. So the app was unusable. So this is a night where there's MLB Championship Series playoffs going on. There's NBA opening night. And then there's anything anybody else wants to be watching across the service. And I'm sitting there wondering if it was the demand for all of these sports events that took this thing down. It took down YouTube. It took down YouTube TV. It took down YouTube Music. And it was down for like an hour and a half. So I missed the crux of a lot of sports action. And then when I went, because one thing you can do, and this happened when YouTube TV went down for the World Cup, which was a big deal. That was the last time it went down for any significant time. You could then go over to the Fox Sports app and authenticate with your YouTube TV credentials and still watch it there. So you do have an out. So I thought, let's do the same thing here. These games, these NBA games were on TNT. So I went over to TNT. Major bummer here. They didn't have YouTube TV as one of the credential partners. So you're just not able to watch these games at all. I had to go into the NBA TV, I had to go into the NBA app and watch like this weird TNT overtime where it's like a shaky camera. I don't know, but that was a real bummer. But maybe it proves how popular it is if it's related to that. The other thing that's hit me this year in particular, I'm almost wondering if the NBA is at its bubble a little bit. And it being at its bubble, it's not like the financial crisis of 2008 where when it punctures, everything goes down and it's nothing. It goes from everything to nothing. But I think there is a bit of a puncture that's going to happen. There is too much coverage. It's wall to wall. We're talking about a game that used to begin, a regular season that used to begin in early November, last day maybe of October. That's now into the midpoint of October. It's really extending things. The off season extends forever. And it's cool. It's great. But it does feel a little oversubscribed and a little overexposed. There are hardcore people who watch it, but the amount that it's overtaking, when I think of The Ringer, the website that was founded by Bill Simmons, when I think of The Ringer doing this opening day palooza, it's just so much. There's only so much you can watch with this and read with this and talk about it. I'm really in for the game. I've come to the point where sports for me is a visual and auditory thing. I watch the sports and I'll listen to radio talk about it or podcasts about it, but even to a certain degree. I got a lot of other stuff I got to be watching. Even in the sports world, I'm focused on football. I'm focused a little bit on baseball and the playoffs, and that's just sports. I'm also focused on current events. I'm focused on what's going on in the world. I'm focused on what's going on in our government, what's going on with the midterms, what's going on with popular culture and television and movies. And I need something that gives me all that. And I feel like the NBA, because it sort of has this bubble happening where everybody's focused on it. It's almost like a town where they found an oil deposit or they found coal or they found gold and they are mining this thing for everything that it's worth. But I hope that they don't leave it in a position where it's worse off because of how hard it got mined. And maybe people reach a point where they just don't want to be exposed to it so much. This last week, I actually just quickly unsubscribed to The Athletic. I had subscribed to it because I got a great deal. And then I realized I just don't want to read, several thousand word articles on every single thing in sports under the sun. It's just too much. And that's for all sports there. But, they're getting all the writers, they're getting all the presences and the Shams Charanians and all this, but it's just too much. There's so much going on with the NBA. It's feeling a little bit to me like the tech boom and burst. Now, again, tech has not gone down the tubes. But you remember like 4 or 5 years ago how much we cared about every single launch of a new product from all the major companies, the FANGs as they call them, Facebook, Alphabet, Amazon, Netflix, Google. We cared so much about each new phone coming, each new form factor of a phone, each new device, audio, visual, television services. We cared so much, and we had live blogs, and sites just were going over the top in coverage of them. And then there just happened to be a winnowing out in the last couple of years where I still care to follow it. I still keep up with it, but I'm not dying to find out about each new thing. And there's still a major interest in my mind for it, but it's just not as big as it once was. And I'm wondering if the NBA is going to have a sort of similar rise and slight drop, where some of these, I mean, there's so many places just to follow basketball. Forget all sports. Sometimes I just want a well-rounded sports center that gives me all the different tidbits going on in the sports world. It's crazy how oversubscribed it is. And often when you go all in on one thing, the fall can happen. It really can happen. And I'm just wondering if we're going to be there. Speaking of tech, I finally made my decision on what my next iPhone is going to be, and it's actually not going to be the 10s or the 10s Max, which would the 10s would be the normal evolution from the 10 I had. The 10s Max would be the bigger screen version of the phone, which is what I said I was going to go to, because why not have a whole new experience as opposed to just jumping up to the next level? And then I just realized today, you know what? I don't want to go all in on the absolute greatest, most ridiculous thing that the Apple has to offer at the time. So I went with this 10R. I made a rash decision because pre-ordering happened today, and I just went with it. It drops the price a lot. It's like a $250 to $300 less price over the life of that phone, which means about $12 to $14 a month. That's not insignificant. And the phone maybe doesn't have the same OLED screen. It's I think it's an LCD or whatever it means. It still says it's got more pixels than a 4K TV. So, but they said at the true views, it's just not as good. But it's a 6.1 inch screen, so it is bigger than the 5.8 that's on the 10 I have. And I just want to go there. It's a little cheaper. It's sort of like how I had the watch. I had the normal Apple Watch, and then since then I'm just going with the Apple Watch Sport because I'm going to end up swapping out of these things every couple of years and with the phone every year. So let me go a little cheaper for a while. It's still going to have the experience. It's still going to have the guts. It's still going to have some upgrades. It might have some diminishments from the camera that you could have in the 10s or 10s Max. But apparently the battery is real good. It's just a little bit of a different screen experience, but it has many of the form factors of the 10 and 10s. But I just decided to go here. Let's see. It's sort of the cheaper version, and a lot of people think it's going to be sort of the default iPhone that a lot of people get. Prices are getting out of control. I don't need to be up at those levels. Maybe I'll find I do, and then I'll go back next year to something else. But this was kind of the call I went with. So I ordered that. It should come next Friday. Pre-sale was today on the iPhone 10R. I'm all up to date finally on Better Call Saul. Great show. Really great show. Again, I've said this in the past. It's not Breaking Bad. Very few things are Breaking Bad, but it is the world of Breaking Bad without the main protagonists of Breaking Bad being Walter White and Jesse. But it's everybody else pretty much. And I'll tell you, I just really like it. It's not the show I'm dying on a weekly basis to watch the most recent one as if I'm watching Game of Thrones, but it's a show that I let get a little out ahead of me, and then I'll kind of binge a handful of episodes, and you really get a great feel from that. It's such a good show. It's a very well done show with enough of Breaking Bad, but then bringing this, it's kind of a half and half, where Breaking Bad was a little bit of comedy, but dark comedy, but mostly it was a drug cartel drama, darker show. Better Call Saul has that, but it's more a 50-50 between that and sort of the Bob Odenkirk-led kind of comedic, kind of everyday lawyer show. And I like having the two parts. And it's funny, I was reading a New York Times article after the end of this most recent 4th season where they said that the drug underground part pales in comparison almost to the Jimmy McGill Saul side of the story, that more comedic, it's not comedic, but dramedy type of deal going on there. And they said that that's the great part of the show. I like it, but I disagree. I think the drug underground part has hooked me. It's been great to see the origin story of a lot of the drug stuff that ended up where we did find out with that it was with the Walter White side of the story. But I like having both. I think it's amazing to have both sides of it, to have that dramedy side and then to have the drug underworld and to go between the two. It makes it very dynamic. I love both. I wouldn't want to watch a show just about one of them. I might want the Narcos side, but it ends up being more like Narcos. But together, those two sides keep you locked in, and it's always fresh because you're really getting deep into the drug world, and then all of a sudden the next scene is more of an open thing with the Kim Wexler and Jimmy McGill side. It's good. I've really enjoyed it. I don't know if I would enjoy it as much watching it week by week as I said, but I do like letting it accumulate and then binging it. So, as I said, I'm in a new gym back in New York Sports Club, and I have really tried to integrate swimming to a much higher degree. I'm trying to pull back on running. I think running hurts my back. As much as I hate to say that, I love running. It's the one exercise that I feel the best from. It's the one exercise where I can kind of go into a trance and just go forever. Ever since I ran a half marathon and the training that led up to it, I have just loved long distance running when I can do it. I don't have the time to do it. Really, 4 miles is 40 minutes for me. I can't tap out more than that unless I happen to be training for something, and I will not be doing that anytime soon. But I do love it. But I got to try to pull back. As I said, these back issues are kind of present, and they're not as present when I do swimming or biking workouts. So I've really tried to do a 30-minute swim, which ends up being for me 30 laps of a 25-yard pool. And it's a good workout. I get my goggles now, I have my swim cap, and I just go. I keep wishing I could get some kind of headphone aspect so I can listen to something while I'm doing it. But from everything you read, there just is not a solution for Bluetooth for swimming that is sustainable in any way. Water seems to be like the kryptonite for that. They do have earphones that can be hooked to an MP3, a waterproof MP3 player that you can have kind of on your cap. But I don't know. There's a lot of work there. Maybe it's something I'll look at as I've gotten more into this, because I just really like having some kind of media consumption complement to my working out. I've gotten really, really into that. And I do have to say, though, the swimming, you get really focused and intensely locked in on the swim, and before you know it, it's over, and it's a great workout, and it just feels good. But I've been doing that, and then, maybe I'll integrate some of the Peloton stuff, the Peloton bike more, where at the end of the day, maybe there's some weeks where I'm not even running, because if I do 2 swim workouts, a Peloton, and then maybe an elliptical, that's where you could end up. And I do have to say, I get a great feel from doing the swim workout. It's almost such an intense workout that I can't lift beforehand. Last Saturday, my wife's been away a lot with her marching band responsibilities, and so I've been with my son a lot. And last Saturday, she gave me the opportunity to just go do what you want. So I said, I'm going to go to the gym. So I rode the 20 minutes to the gym. I did a little lifting. I did a swim. I went into a sauna for 25 minutes, and it was tremendous. I felt great. And, anything that gets this little knot that's in my back out is great. But man, swimming is its own world. I love it. Though. I got to try to integrate it more. But I'll tell you what the magical thing is, and I don't know if everybody realizes this, and I realize this because on the Joe Rogan podcast over the last handful of years, and even recently, he has a guest called Dr. Rhonda Patrick, and she tells you all kinds of deep little life hack things with minerals and supplements and workout tricks that really help you be the best version of yourself and help drive up things like growth hormone and all kinds of positive things that many people actually take performance enhancing drugs for, but that you can do naturally to a degree. And one of these things is a sauna. I don't think people realize how magical saunas are until you're told about it and you read up on it. A lot of people think they do saunas and it kind of gets the toxins out. Sure, that happens. But there are things that a sauna does that are just magical. It ends up being like 180 degrees in there. And you're breathing it in, you're feeling good, you're sweating. And even though you're sweating, you're actually losing a lot more water than you even think. But one of the crazy things is a sauna naturally drives up human growth hormone. it makes it surge through your body at an amazing level. I think if you're just in a sauna for 15 minutes, it doubles your growth hormone. And that if you were to go, I saw some study, I think, if you were to go, which you can't do, there's no time for this, but if you went to a sauna for 2 1-hour sessions in a day, and you do that for 7 days, it can drive your growth hormone up 1,600% or something. So when I do that, it just feels good. You feel loose. You feel like you have like a testosterone rolling. You feel like you're on top of things, that you got a lot of energy, enthusiasm for everything. It's just hard to find the time to do it. I've been trying to kind of experiment with going to the gym on my off days in the morning and just doing the sauna and then taking a shower there. But I've read it's really most effective when you do it after a workout. So I'm trying to still figure out how I can kind of integrate this in more of a way, because you got to do it often. Anything is a positive, but man, if I could do it after every workout, it would just be so much better. Though that's hard. I can't really do that as much, but it's magical. If you look up this stuff, it's shocking how magical it is. Or if you listen to the Dr. Rhonda Patrick episodes on Joe Rogan, those are great nugget-filled things to watch. When I went to Austin last month, it's crazy, it's been a month already. I told you about how I rented a car from Thrifty, and I rented it through Hotwire, and it ended up being a tremendous cost, and there were no hidden costs in there. But one of the things that happened, they asked me when I was at the front desk when I was getting my car, even though I had paid for everything, and even though I found out that my car insurance covers me even in a rental car, they try to upsell you on several things, and you just got to decline them, and they're okay with declining them as you move on. But one of the things they said is, would you like a toll? So would you basically like an easy pass for the time you're riding this? It's automatically on the car. It's just a matter of if you turn it on or not. And it ended up being like $12 a day. But when I was looking on my phone, I was like, I don't even think I'm on toll roads. And she just said, oh, okay. She didn't really ask me more. That's on me though. But I get on the road, and anytime I saw a toll, I would stop and pay it. There was a momentary just burst of fear when I was like, oh my God, I don't carry cash. And I happen to have cash, which was great. And it ended up being like $1 and change, something like that. And I paid everywhere I could. But there was a place on the outskirts of Austin where you just drive through a thing, and it had no option for paying an actual attendee. And you just drive through, and then it had some note about like how you pay. But it was sort of like you mail something in, or it was brutal. And I thought it was fine, because I was like, well, if there's no way for me to pay, then how is it my fault? But I'm in the most tracked car you could possibly have, because it's a rental car and it has this tag thing, but it's just not turned on. And so about 2 weeks ago, a handful of weeks after my trip, I get a letter from thriftycarrentalfine.com. And what it showed me was that I went through, I think they reported me going through 6 tolls that I didn't pay. So 3 going, and then the same 3 coming back, including 4 or 2 by 2, right? 2 of them being on that Austin road where there was no option to pay off of some kind of tag. And so it proceeded to show me a bill for like $125. And I'm like, what on earth? And the tolls ended up being like $1, $2, whatever the case may be. But then this Thrifty car rental, for the privilege of paying for my toll, they assess a $15 administrative fee against every one of the missed tolls. And they say, we won't go above 6. But there were 6 there. And so that ended up adding, what, 30, 60? Like, that ended up adding like $75 to my fee. And I'm like, this is absolutely nuts. This is crazy. And so it's like it'll just automatically take the fee from your from the credit card we have on file. And I'm like, this is an injustice. And so I'm going on this website they say to go to, and the website stinks. Well, first I went to the actual authorities, like whatever the Texas highway authorities were, to try to pay it. And you go in and you put your code in, and they're like, sorry, you can't pay it here. Obviously, because Thrifty Car Rental has taken over this thing. So then I go to Thrifty Car Rental, and I have to go through this convoluted contact form, and I don't hear anything for a while. And then like a week later, someone writes back and says, Yeah, no, you missed the things, and the agreement you signed said that you understood this. We all know these agreements, and they go on for pages, and you just sign it. So yes, my bad, but it was ridiculous. So now basically, after I made all these savings by this whole plan I had about flying in on Spirit Airlines to Houston, renting a car, driving back overnight, I saved all this money. Now that savings is being really kind of frittered away with these crazy costs, $100 and something for the tolls. Unbelievable. But anyway, the woman ends up, or it was a woman who wrote back. She ended up saying, we're willing to let you pay for the original tags, the Easy Pass like tag, which ends up being like $20 and ends up saving you like $80. And so I said, yes, please. I contacted back. I don't hear anything. And then I'm like, well, geez, I better call back to make sure this is legit. And I'm trying to call back this number, and it's like, sorry, the Verizon customer you were trying to reach is offline. I'm like, wait a second, this is somebody's The whole thing was sketchy, but I did reach someone eventually, and they said, oh yes, this is fine. Just look out. You might be assessed the whole fee on your card, but you should see it pulled back by the end of the week. So what a crazy thing. So when you're renting a car, watch out for that toll thing, that toll aspect. Make sure that there are not tolls on your road, and make sure that if there are and you don't want to get this tag, that you have a way to always pay the attendees, that there is an attendee at these. Because on my trip, I only saw 2 attendees on either side, and somehow I was assessed all these different fines for missing tolls, which I never saw. So watch out for that. It's kind of crazy. Last weekend on Saturday night, it was another night where my wife was out at her marching band responsibilities, and I just sat down at night. I got a little something to eat, put Liam down to bed, and I was just going to kind of watch something, and I decided, hey, let's start catching up on Handmaid's Tale. And man, Handmaid's Tale is so dark, and it's an hour of darkness. So I'm like, let me try to just binge through this. And I got through one episode. I'm like, I can't binge this. Handmaid's Tale is a really good show, but it is not binge-worthy because it is just so heavy and dark to watch. And it was this episode in season 2 where it looks like the one handmaid's going to get away, and then right at the nick of time when they're on this plane, it all ends, and it looks like she's going to get dragged back, so it's only going to get worse. And I was just like, I can't do this. This is so dark, especially with the way society's going at this moment, where journalists are getting beheaded and their fingers cut off in embassies. It's like, with Jamal Khashoggi, that thing that hurts my heart, that thing. Oh, it makes your stomach drop how awful it is. It's just so much down aspects to everything going on. And so I was looking on Instagram, I think, or I was looking on Facebook or Twitter, and I saw someone say, this is the 25th anniversary of the movie Rudy. I was like, whoa, I want to watch Rudy. I want something uplifting right now. I want something that's going to make my skin raise in a good way, goosebumps, and just make you feel good about someone striving for something, a real American dream. Who knows how true the movie is? I know there's been some articles over the years that say it wasn't like how it was, that he obviously didn't sack someone and walk off on the field like that, but I have to think he was probably walked off the field, but maybe he didn't sack. But man, you need those stories. It just makes you feel good. Sometimes we need fiction. And so I decided I'm going to watch it. And so I went to my trusty app called Just Watch, which is this sort of search index where you can put in any movie or TV show, and it'll tell you across all the streaming services where it might be available, because I would have gone and rented it, but why not check to see if you have it on one of your apps? And I looked, and there was one way to watch it for an app I already have, Stars. So I logged into Stars, and I started watching Rudy, and I started watching it at like 9:45, which for me is really late. I stuck with it the whole time. That movie, the music, the story, it's nice being in the 70s without all the technology and people actually talking and interacting, and just somebody who loved this university so much and what that person did to get there. When the friend died and he goes overnight and meets with Father Kavanaugh, who thinks that he's going to be, funny name Kavanaugh in this period of time, but who meets with Father Kavanaugh, who thinks Rudy's there to become a member of the priesthood. And he was like, no, nothing against you. I want to go to Notre Dame. And the father helping him go to the junior college to try to make his way up. And then him working with Rudy working with the Jon Favreau character who was at Notre Dame, who would help him if Rudy helps him get girls. to working with the grounds crew at the stadium and sleeping in there, in the break room, and then the way that I think his name was Rock, right? Charles Dutton, I think that's Rock, right? The way he kind of like gave him a blanket and a key, and then told Rudy the whole time when Rudy would say thank you, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I just loved it. I loved the whole build up. And it's funny, one of the favorite scenes is the one with the father, who's played by Ned Beatty. And Rudy comes back with the letter to the smelting plant or whatever it is they do. And he gives his dad the acceptance letter to Notre Dame. And the way the dad just goes, you did it. You did it. And that was almost more impressive than being on the team in some ways, actually getting in there and just everything he did to make it. And then actually making the practice squad and people still not believing him. And then the way he had to get himself onto an actual game day roster, and the way the Parsegian character, the coach, said, yes, I'll give you one game. And then the new coach comes in, Dan Devine, played by that famous actor we know. He was the old pitcher Harris in Major League, and here he is as playing Dan Devine, and he's just not holding it. He's not holding up to the agreement that Parsegian had made with Rudy. And Rudy going week after week looking at his roster to see if his name is there, and all the players kind of understanding. And then you get to that point, that famous point where the whole team goes in one by one and says, I want Rudy to play in my place. And then the coach goes to the first one, the captain, who's Roland Steele, I think is the athlete's name, probably in real life, but in the movie. And he says, you're an All-American and the captain. Act like it. And the guy goes, I believe I am. Puts the jersey down, and just Rudy coming out. Oh, it was so good. And like, man, at that ender when the Vince Vaughn character who's in it, who's sort of the maligned, the expectations were on his shoulders to be an All-American, and he never really panned out, but he's brought in when it's a blowout, and he throws the touchdown so that Rudy could get on the field in this already blowout instead of just playing out the clock. Man, that movie, it was so good. It was just so nice. There just aren't movies made like this anymore, and everything is so serious and so dark and so down. And even these Marvel superhero shows and movies, it's just such darkness. Like they're doing positive things, but it's trying to fight off the darkness. I just want something that's light for lightness' sake. And that's what Rudy represented. And it was just absolutely tremendous to watch Rudy. And it's something that I'd recommend giving it another shot. It's just always good to watch. 25 years later, I'm looking at social media. I never would have watched Rudy that night, but you see 25 years ago that night, people were going to see it in the theater and being uplifted. And I thought, let's do it. If there's never a time like the present, and if the present marks some kind of milestone since the movie's come out or some kind of anniversary, that's something I want to do. So why don't we call it there right now? That's a handful of the things I was really looking to talk about. We got our sports seasons in play. Last night I saw the note where it was the sports equinox, where all four major sports were playing on the same night. And we're going to continue this weekend. There are so many good basketball games, starting with tonight. I can't wait to see the Celtics play the Raptors. That's going to be fun. To see the Warriors play the Jazz. That's going to be fun. There's just so much to watch right now. Basketball is great. I still do think there is a bubble. I still do think there's too much coverage of it at the moment. But for those who love it, and I love it, I will sit down and watch a game. I won't read about it as much anymore because I got a lot of reading I need to do in other places for probably things that are a little more important in the world. It's funny. I've said this before. I think if you watch sports and you read news, you're going to be in a good place. If you watch news and read sports, you're in a. It's not bad to read sports, but I think you have a certain bandwidth you can devote to reading, and I'd rather devote that to news because news is reported out, it's sourced, and look, cable's fine, but I hope you're reading as well as watching news. I hope your news gather or your news consumption is not only by watching, because they are really trying to keep ratings in and they're not focusing on everything. And actually, a lot of these sort of debates and things that news gatherers fight with internally about what news should be, how you should cover it, because everyone's covering Trump, obviously. Should we be covering other things that maybe won't get as many clicks but are important to cover? There's a really good podcast on the Ezra Klein podcast, and I think he talked to Jay Rosen, who is a NYU professor on media. It was a tremendous podcast, sort of wrestling with all of these debates you have about what media should be today, how it's failing. And it's not failing in the fake news way or the way that you might come to think, but just how it can kind of succeed and what it needs to do going into the future to be something that's more of a resource for citizens, as opposed to having to be an advocate and a bulwark against a certain presidency. So that was a really good podcast to listen to. So yeah, everybody have a good weekend. We'll see where we go from here. I'll catch up with you later.